Hello everyone, I am back from vacation. Had to play catch up all last week for work, on top of everybody in the household getting sick, which of course is always fun. Timing was perfect too, of course. Although I'm being sarcastic there, I guess the timing was kind of good because it pushed back my ability to get matches in, and we had a pretty big event this last weekend with the TWT finals. So instead of matches, we're going to do both a quick channel update and some Tekken 8 talk since a lot of info was put out there. I don't really see it as spoilers, but if you do, consider this your spoiler warning. I'm going to do a little bit of jumping back and forth here by necessity, but I'll start by talking about a timeline because I think it's important to this channel, and although some people are chatting about release date and such, more of the conversation is about gameplay. You can see, of course, in the background, part of the gameplay reveal video they did. I've linked that in the video description below. My video won't be nearly that long, so definitely go watch that when you have the time since it's 35 minutes long. But anyway, time frame matters for me because of the content I do. That said, they didn't give a date for a T8 release. I don't think they even suggested a date or date range. Instead, what they said was that the next Tekken World Tour is going to start again almost immediately with EVO Japan, which is the last weekend of March into April. Starting with that event, they will have on-site alpha builds for T8 for people to play. So if you're able to make it to one of those offline events and you're interested in having an early hands-on experience with T8, definitely try to make an event. But now we can do some speculating. For me, I can guarantee you that they won't release T8 while a TWT is still going for T7. So my expectation, and probably those of many others, is that we will get a release date during the next TWT finals. But if you're thinking the next TWT finals will be in a year, not so fast. They haven't released the full schedule, but last year, if I'm not mistaken, the first at least major TWT event was CEO, which was at the end of June. So this next TWT is starting almost 3 months sooner than the last one. We also don't know if it'll go as long because they already said that there will not be any online qualifiers this time, only offline events. That to me signals another shrink in season length. It will be interesting to see when they schedule the next finals, but I would not rule out the season only lasting until October, just in time for a winter release date announcement. If that happens, it's possible we get a release this year, granted towards the end of the year. Now for this channel, that matters for a couple of reasons. First, that means I have at least until the end of the year before I can even think about Tekken 8 content. That helps me determine what content I should be doing right now, which was a big reason I decided to take a break from the guides until now. Because of some personal schedule changes, I anticipate having more time available pretty much starting this week, which means I will be going back to some regular guide content. It may not be quite as quick a turnaround as before, but I'd like to get back to doing the guides and tweaking the formats for those. Plus, the oldest character guides are now a few years old, and it's worth revisiting those and putting replacement guides out for them. Also, I'd like to do more of the defensive guides as well as some others, so expect those to resume in the near future. I'd still like to get some match videos out too, which reminds me I did finally get my Victrix BFG controller, which I've been talking about for a while. So far, this thing seems really slick and the D-pad seems solid. I need more hours into it, but crossing my fingers that this can be a long-term pad, which means I'll be more inclined to play more often since it'll be more enjoyable. I also want to do a little review video on it once I feel comfortable with it, since it really is a neat controller. Anyway, I think that covers the issue of dates. Now let's talk about the gameplay stuff they discussed. First, aside from this longer gameplay vid, they also did a shorter Nina reveal. That doesn't feel like super hype news to me, so this will be the only mention of it. Next, I'm going to do a TLDR of their vid because aside from graphical changes, they really only revealed two big things. The first is that they removed rage drives. Instead, they now have a new system which they call Heat. Now, they did mention Heat previously, but now we have a lot more information about it. I'm rarely going to call it that, and I think any reasonable person should probably call it a burst system since that's what it is. It's basically the same kind of burst meter that Geese has right now in T7, but it's just one bar, whereas of course Geese can build up to 3. So if you understand how that Geese mechanic works, you'll more or less understand everything else about the system that they mentioned. So it allows you to extend pressure, extend combos, and gives you access to different moves or powerful versions of moves you already have. Note that rage still exists, but the only special thing you can do from it is your super. Otherwise, if you leave it active, you get the same damage boost that exists now in T7. They did also say that the input for supers are now globally unified, so you don't have to remember a specific command for each character, and you can still bind it to a single button. It's hard to analyze too much about the burst system right now because we just don't have specific data like what moves can burst, what the frames look like, and so on, but it's clear that rage drives were an attempt to test this system. It's also really obvious that this burst system is going to be super important because it'll be super powerful. So once T8 is out and starts to age, I would bet anything that they do a lot of changing, adding, and removing of so-called heat moves, since it's kind of a contained balance area within a character's moveset. In any case, it's clear that we can think of it now as a more robust rage drive system, or like I mentioned, a copy of Geese's burst meter. I'll say that it definitely looks cool, as does the game in general, so that bodes well. The other notable item is that they are bringing back a version of recoverable chip damage. Now, believe it or not, and I think Harada mentions this is not new. The tag games already had this in the form of what you would call red life. The difference is that red life occurred only when you got hit. It wasn't guard chip. Also in the tag games, red life would recover over time. In T8, you have to start swinging to gain that life back. Whiffs don't apparently do anything, but if you hit with a move or your opponent blocks it, you'll get that life back. It'll be a very interesting twist on how Tekken is currently played, because this seems on the surface a very obvious and powerful buff to characters that are very good at lockdown like Hwoarang. Aside from that though, they talked about some improvements to the assist controller style, which still doesn't have much competitive relevance, so I'm going to skip that. Although many people have noticed that bound, or at least a form of it, is back. They didn't go in depth about juggles, so we'll have to see how that pans out. Tailspin is a much more balanced combo extender, but now both exist, so who knows how that'll impact the game. And I think that covers it. Very neat to see more of the T8 system. Also very cool to know that we'll have some on-site testing locations here soon, which by the way also basically confirms that they are skipping the arcade-only release period. I'm sure it'll be in arcades, but there's no doubt it'll be released on consoles simultaneously. I'm excited because I would like to once again put more time in and travel a bit more for this last hurrah of T7 and try to get my hands on as much T8 as possible. So this sort of times out perfect for that. Otherwise, I hope you guys were excited to see some more T8 stuff. Expect more guide videos here soon on this channel, and I'll try to do as many match vids as I can. I won't spoil who won TWT, but if you haven't watched it yet, lots of good matches there, so give the VOD for that a look. If I forgot anything, I can toss that in a video later on. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll catch you later.